just leaving third gear the whole way around the track.
Alright.
Then we go on the brakes, off the brakes, turning in. That's good, telling the car to do only one thing. Feeding the power on. We're still on the power, now on the brakes. Off the brakes, turning in. Feed the power back on. That's good for keeping your hands in that position. Yep, keeping the power. Then off the power, turning in. Yep, keeping the nose in, feeding the power on. And always looking as far ahead as we can. Yep, keeping the power, feeding the power on, still on the power. Now back on the brakes. Off the brakes, turning in. Yep, keep turning. Now feed the power on. Yep, still on the power. Now back on the brakes. Off the brakes, turning in. Feed the power on, looking as far ahead as we can. So we'll focus on probably steering position and looking ahead. So we'll start off with the basics for these two short tracks. Right. And then once we get these down pat, because the vision helps with steering, funnily enough. Because if you look where you want to go, you're steering where you want the car to go because you're looking far ahead.
Great.
So back on the brakes, off the brakes, turning in. Feed the power on. So a bit more power, more power, more power, more power. Still more power, still more power. Now back on the brakes. Off the brakes, turning in. Yep. Feed the power on. Looking ahead. Still more power. Feed the power on. Now on the brakes a little bit. Off the brakes, turning in. That's good. You're telling the car to do one thing at a time. Yep. Keeping on. See that swept line? Those two dirt tracks, those darker tracks. That's where we want the car to be, because that's where the grip is. So back on the brakes. Off the brakes, turning in. Back on the brakes, off the brakes, turning in, feed the power, keeping the nose nice and in, yep, on the grippy line. Yep, still on the power. There's two people on this track, so it could have been someone else. We probably would have heard it. Let's feed the power on. Still on the power, on that grippy line. Back on the brakes, off the brakes, turning in, yep, good work. Back on the brakes again, off the brakes, turning in, feed the power on. Try not to hacksaw at the corner too much, just try one nice sweeping movement. Because when you hacksaw at higher speeds, the car gets unsettled because you're making the car do that, because you're going left, right. Yeah. So if you do one nice movement, the car stays nice and balanced. So feed the power on, back on the brakes, off the brakes, turning in, looking through the corner, feed the power on, yep, on the power, off power. Feed the power on. Now on the brakes, off the brakes, turning in, feed the power on, yep, power, still on the power, on the power, still on the power. Now on the brakes, off the brakes, turning in, keeping the nose in, yep, because you can see all that marbly stuff in the middle. We want to avoid that because there's no grip. That's just like slipping on a banana. Back in the brake,
You can feel it gripping better.
yeah.
When it's inside.
Well, you'll notice especially just up here that it's starting to evolve where it's all, you can see that it's marbles but there's a dog on the road. We're hanging now. Feed the power on. So you can see here it's starting to evolve, that grippy line where we've been driving. So we're sweeping the road. So when you're in a rally, you want to be car 5 or 6 on the road, not car 1. Right. So still on the power, back on the brakes, off the brakes, turning in, yep. Now on the power. So you can get on the power as soon as the corner starts to open up. So we'll develop that through the day. Back on the brakes, off the brakes, turning in, yep, feed the power on. And back on the brakes, still braking. it's showing you how that swept line can develop. So lift your head, still going, back on the brakes nice and firm, off the brakes, turning in. Yep, get the power on. Back on the brakes nice and firm, off the brakes, turning in, feed the power on. And back on the brakes, turn, push back. So now we're on that more of that grippy line. See how it carries a bit more climb speed. Now the profile of the corner has changed. Back on the brakes, off the brakes, turning in, looking through the corner. And back on the brakes again, still braking, off the brakes, turning in. That's good. One input at a time. The car reacts well with that. Back on the brakes, off the brakes, turn in, a little bit of power. So you can hold a little bit. And then you can squeeze it on, but you can't squeeze it on too early because it will make the car want to understeer. So back on the brakes, off the brakes, turning in.
What would you prefer to oversteer?
Sorry?
What would you prefer to oversteer?
The car will oversteer if you get on the exit of a corner. If you get on the loose stuff and you try to gas it up. The car can also oversteer under brakes if we're on the limit of braking and we're trying to brake too late